I actually watch to see who he goes and celebrates with. Because what did I do? I looked for my offensive lineman every time. I went down and celebrated in the end zone with my teammates every time. I wanted everyone to feel like they were part of the success. I told the linemen, we're all running to the end zone and we're celebrating as a team. Because I think that's way more intimidating than a quarterback doing his six-shooter guns and pointing up in the crowd and doing all that other bullshit that's very self-promotional, but it's not about winning.
Tom Brady has shocked the NFL. His new comments about quarterbacks have fans, players, and reporters all talking. Some say he was aiming at Shedeur Sanders, but this story is bigger than one player. It's about respect, style, and what football should look like today. Tom Brady is a 7-time Super Bowl champion, a Hall of Fame lock, and for years, the face of the NFL. But his recent remarks turned him into the center of controversy. In an interview with Cris Collinsworth, Brady was asked how he judges quarterbacks. His answer caught everyone's attention. Brady explained that he values quarterbacks who celebrate with teammates instead of showing off. He said that kind of behavior shows respect for the players who made the touchdown possible. To him, celebrating with linemen was always more powerful than flashy solo moves. He never mentioned Shedeur Sanders, but the connection was clear. Sanders, son of Deion, Coach Prime Sanders, is known for his bold wrist flex celebration. To some, Brady's comments sounded like an old-school critique of today's players. To others, it felt deeper, a shot at young black quarterbacks who bring personality and branding to the game. Brady's critique came during Monday's sit-down with Collinsworth. He said he watches quarterbacks closely, not just how they throw, but how they act after scoring. When a quarterback throws a touchdown pass, I actually watch to see who he goes and celebrates with. I looked for my offensive lineman every time, he said. That was a clear message about teamwork. But Brady didn't stop there. He mocked the flashy celebrations common in today's NFL. A quarterback doing his six-shooter guns and pointing up in the crowd and doing all that other bull's tea, that's very self-promotional, he said. Many fans immediately pointed to Shedeur Sanders, the Cleveland Browns rookie. Sanders has built a bold image. His two legendary brand, his draft party in Texas, and his on-field swagger all show confidence. Brady's choice of words made it sound personal. Brady's approach fit his career. He was known for controlled celebrations and a laser focus on the team. But football has changed. Players like Sanders connect with fans through expression. Shedeur Sanders isn't just any rookie. At 23, he entered the NFL with enormous expectations, thanks to his father, Deion Sanders, and his standout college career. He also brought a level of confidence that not everyone appreciated. Sanders skipped the 2025 NFL draft ceremony in Green Bay, choosing instead to host his own party in Canton, Texas. He arrived wearing his own brand, too legendary, and surrounded himself with family, friends, and fans. That same swagger shows up on the field. His watch flex has already become one of the most talked about celebrations in football. The Raiders, where Brady is now a minority owner, passed on Sanders multiple times before trading for Geno Smith. Sanders eventually fell to the Browns in the 5th round, pick 144. Some wonder if Brady's preference for team-first quarterbacks influenced those decisions. Now Sanders enters the NFL as the Browns' third-string quarterback, behind Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel. His playing time might be limited, but his presence is impossible to ignore. For fans, Sanders represents a new kind of quarterback, flashy, confident, and unafraid to stand out. For Brady, that style seems to cross the line. The reaction to Brady's comments was swift. Many fans accused him of targeting black quarterbacks who use celebrations to express themselves. Analysts brought up not only Shedeur Sanders but also Deshaun Watson and others known for their showmanship. Critics argued Brady's words carried a double standard. White quarterbacks who celebrated with energy were often praised as fiery leaders, but when black quarterbacks celebrated with flair, they were called selfish. This pattern has existed for decades across sports, from Cam Newton's dab dance to Colin Kaepernick's protest. Brady may have intended to emphasize teamwork, but mocking these gestures came across as dismissive. Social media debates exploded. Some fans defended Brady, saying he was promoting a team-first attitude. Others accused him of being out of touch with a new generation of players. The controversy shows how celebrations aren't just about football, they're about identity. For many black quarterbacks, they are a way to show pride and connect with fans. By criticizing them, Brady walked into a much larger debate than he may have expected. Brady's comments struck a nerve because they tie into a bigger issue in the NFL. How black quarterbacks are judged. For years, they faced more scrutiny than their white counterparts. Critics often question their leadership, their style, and their celebrations. The history is clear. Cam Newton's dances drew outrage. Colin Kaepernick's protests nearly ended his career. Meanwhile, white quarterbacks who showed emotion, like Brett Favre celebrating wildly, were often praised as fierce competitors. This double standard explains why Brady's words stung. By mocking flashy celebrations, he seemed to reinforce the idea that black quarterbacks must tone down their individuality to be accepted. His point about teamwork may have been valid, but framing it around self-promotion echoed criticisms long aimed at black athletes. It's not just about football. It's about culture, race, and how players are allowed to express themselves. Brady's critique came just as Shedeur Sanders was settling into his role with the Cleveland Browns. The team named him the third-string quarterback behind Joe Flacco and Dillon Gabriel. But that wasn't the only drama in Cleveland. The Browns also shook up their backfield. Running back Pierre Strong Jr. was waived and moved to injured reserve. That leaves Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson, and Raheem Sanders as the main options. Ford is expected to take the lead after rushing for 565 yards and 3 touchdowns last season. Meanwhile, second-round pick Quinshon Judkins remains unsigned after his arrest in a domestic violence case. The NFLPA is still investigating, and he could face suspension. That uncertainty puts even more pressure on Ford to carry the load. For Shedeur Sanders, the roster chaos adds to the spotlight. As the Browns work through changes, fans are watching how he handles his role. And now, after Brady's remarks, every move Sanders makes on the field and every celebration will be under the microscope. Tom Brady has always been praised for leadership, focus, and winning. As a legend, his words carry weight. In this case, they reignited conversations about race, respect, and freedom of expression in sports. The NFL has taken steps toward inclusivity, but moments like this show how fragile that progress remains. Brady may see himself as teaching lessons about teamwork, yet many hear his words as dismissive of a new generation of players. What started as a critique of touchdown celebrations has become a larger cultural debate. By calling certain gestures self-promotional, Brady was seen as taking aim at Shedeur Sanders and others who celebrate with style. The backlash has been strong. Fans, players, and analysts argue this is no longer just about football, it's about identity and equality. Celebrations are more than showboating. They're a way for athletes to connect with fans, honor their journey, and challenge stereotypes. Brady's remarks, whether intentional or not, tapped into a history of double standards in the NFL. Now, the conversation is less about touchdowns and more about respect. The questions remain. Will this affect Brady's legacy, or will the storm pass? And for Sanders, will he answer with his play, his personality, or both? One thing is certain. The debate sparked by Brady's words will shape how fans and players view not only him, but the culture of the game itself.
What happens when a quarterback breaks over 100 school records in 2 years, but somehow becomes the most hated player in the NFL before even taking a real snap? Welcome to the Shedeur Sanders story, where facts don't seem to matter and the media has completely lost its mind. Let's start with what actually happened in April. Shedeur Sanders was supposed to go first overall. ESPN had him there. Draft experts had him there. Then something weird happened. He didn't go first. He didn't go in the first round at all. He fell all the way to pick 144 in the 5th round. Skip Bayless called this the most stunning and disgusting development in NFL draft history. Even President Trump got involved, questioning if NFL owners are stupid and saying Sanders should be picked immediately. Former Congressman Jamal Bowman said the NFL doesn't like Sanders because he wears gold chains and talks like a rapper. Stephen A. Smith compared it to the Colin Kaepernick situation. One fan was so mad, they filed a $100 million lawsuit against the NFL claiming racial discrimination. Now, you might think all this drama is just noise, but when you look at what Sanders actually did in college, it becomes impossible to ignore. At Colorado, Sanders broke over 100 school records. not 10, not 50, over 100. In just 2 years, he led the team to their best record in almost a decade, their first bowl game in 5 years. He finished top 5 in Heisman voting. He won the John Unitas Golden Arm Award. These aren't opinions, these are facts. But somehow, the same media people who were calling him a first-round talent a year ago are now acting like he can't play. Dan Orlovsky had him projected in the first round. Now those same analysts are quiet. Let's talk about what's happening in Cleveland right now. The Browns have created the most confusing quarterback situation in the NFL. They signed 40-year-old Joe Flacco as their starter. They drafted Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round. They took Sanders in the 5th, they traded for Kenny Pickett, then traded him away. They signed Tyler Huntley, then cut him the next day. Assistant GM Catherine Hickman recently talked to reporters about both rookies. When asked about Gabriel, she couldn't stop praising him. She said Gabriel has been super impressive on and off the field and is extremely mature, professional. She talked about his process and how much the team loves working with him. Then they asked about Sanders. Suddenly, her tone changed completely. She said it's a tough question to talk about his outlook. She mentioned it's a super small sample size and they need to continue to be intentional with his plan.
Yeah, it's actually a great question, Daryl. That's what makes our job fun and hard. I'd say I'd just go back to like the plan that we have in place for these guys when it comes to developing is acquiring as many valuable data points we can. Now we know these things take time. So what is that going to look like at the end of the year? I don't have a crystal ball to tell you, and I don't do well with hypotheticals, but I will say that every opportunity we will have to evaluate them, we will take. None of them is going to take, a back seat in how we plan and program for them with the reps that we have. And then from there, we'll see what the spring brings, and we'll evaluate all possibilities like we always do.
Same team, same front office, 2 totally different responses. Let's look at the actual numbers from preseason. Gabriel completed 25 of 37 passes for 272 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. That's a 67.6% completion rate. Sanders completed 17 of 29 passes for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. That's 58.6% completion. On the surface, Gabriel looks better. But here's what nobody wants to talk about. Gabriel played with the first and second team players. Sanders played with guys who got cut the next day. In the final preseason game, Sanders played the entire second half. He took 5 sacks. 4 of his 5 possessions were 3-and-outs. But here's the crazy part. 4 of the 5 offensive linemen protecting him got waived the next day. 4 out of 5. When Tony Rizzo brought this up on ESPN Radio, analyst Tony Grossi said it
mean anything to you. Boy, it means something to you. It would mean something to you if Dylan Gabriel was the guy playing with the 3s and they got waived the next day. That would mean something to you.
This is the problem. The same situation that gets ignored when it hurts Sanders would be used as an excuse if it happened to Gabriel. Coach Kevin Stefanski made another questionable decision in that final preseason game. With 2 minutes left, he benched Sanders for Tyler Huntley to lead the game-winning drive. The very next day, they cut Huntley. Think about that. They benched their 5th-round pick for a guy they didn't even want on the team. The media coverage has been just as bad. Remember when everyone was excited about Arch Manning? Some of those same people who criticized Sanders for his last name privilege were making excuses for Manning's limited college production. Here's a question nobody wants to answer. If Arch Manning had thrown for 4,000 yards, broken 100 school records, and finished top 5 in Heisman voting, would people respond the same way they did to Sanders? Of course not. Browns legend Joe Thomas recently defended the team's decision-making. He said there's nuance that the Shedeur Sanders cult doesn't have. But even Thomas admitted Sanders has a higher ceiling and is a great playmaker with tremendous accuracy. So if Sanders has a higher ceiling, why is he 3rd string? Thomas says it's about development time. But how do you develop when you're only getting reps with players who get cut? The Browns' plan doesn't make sense from any angle. They're starting a 40-year-old quarterback who hasn't been a full-time starter since 2017. Their backup is a rookie who threw an interception in limited preseason action. Their 3rd stringer broke over 100 college records but can't get a fair shot. NFL analyst Greg Cosell recently said that coach Kevin Stefanski sees Dylan Gabriel as similar to Tua Tagovailoa. That's interesting because Tagovailoa is considered a Tier 3 quarterback in the NFL. Good numbers, but not elite. If Gabriel really is the next Tua, that means the Browns got good value in the third round. But it also means they might still need to draft a quarterback high next year to find their long-term answer. Meanwhile, Sanders sits at third string, waiting for his chance. Browns reporter Mary Kay Cabot recently revealed something important about the team's plans. She said the Browns will start Joe Flacco for as long as he's operating the offense effectively and winning games. But if he's turning the ball over or taking sacks, the Browns will hand the reins to Gabriel without hesitation. She also mentioned Sanders will get opportunities, but probably not until later in the season when he's more seasoned. This creates an interesting situation. If Flacco struggles early, Gabriel gets the chance. If Gabriel struggles, does Sanders finally get his shot? The Browns have 2 first-round picks next year. General Manager Andrew Berry and head coach Stefanski were spotted at the Texas-Ohio State game, leading to speculation they might draft another quarterback. They're also reportedly interested in Arch Manning for the 2026 draft. If they draft another quarterback high, what does that mean for Sanders and Gabriel? It suggests the front office isn't confident in either rookie as a long-term answer. Here's what makes this whole situation so frustrating. Sanders hasn't failed at anything yet. He completed passes in preseason. He didn't turn the ball over. He showed good accuracy on the throws he was allowed to make. But he's being judged like he's already proven he can't play. The media narrative around Sanders has been toxic from day one. People decided they didn't like his confidence, his jewelry, his social media presence, or his famous father. Then they worked backward to find football reasons to justify those feelings. But confidence isn't a bad thing for a quarterback. Tom Brady was confident, Aaron Rodgers is confident, Patrick Mahomes is confident. The difference is, those guys were given chances to prove themselves on the field. The Browns' handling of this situation raises serious questions about their ability to evaluate and develop talent. They've had quarterback problems for decades. They've drafted quarterbacks high and watched them fail. They've signed veterans and watched them flame out. Now they have a quarterback who actually succeeded at the college level, and they're treating him like a practice squad player. When the Cleveland Browns announced their quarterback depth chart this week, it sent shockwaves through the NFL world that nobody saw coming. The team that drafted the most talked about fifth-round pick in recent memory just relegated him to third string, and now one of their own legends is calling out his fan base. Let me break down what just happened in Cleveland because this story has everything. Family drama, social media battles, and some brutal reality checks from a Hall of Famer. The Browns just finalized their quarterback room for the 2025 season, and here's how it shakes out. Joe Flacco gets the starting job, which honestly makes sense given his experience. But here's where it gets interesting. Rookie Dylan Gabriel, who was drafted in the third round, beat out Shedeur Sanders for the backup spot. Sanders, the son of NFL legend Deion Sanders and former Colorado quarterback, is now sitting as the emergency third quarterback. Now, if you've been following Sanders at all, you know this guy has one of the biggest fan bases for a fifth-round pick in NFL history. His supporters were absolutely convinced he'd walk into Cleveland and immediately take over as the starter. They called it destiny, said the Browns would be crazy not to start him right away. Well, Browns legend Joe Thomas had something to say about that, and he didn't hold back. Thomas, who's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and played his entire career protecting Cleveland quarterbacks, went on a radio show this week and delivered what can only be described as a reality check to what he called the Shedeur Sanders cult. His words were pretty direct. Thomas said there's a lot of nuance in these decisions that Sanders supporters just don't understand. He explained that these fans believe everyone else is stupid for not seeing that Sanders is the greatest thing since sliced bread and ready to lead the Browns to their first Super Bowl right now. But Thomas knows football, and he knows development. He acknowledged that Sanders has a higher ceiling than most fifth-round picks. The guy is a great playmaker with tremendous accuracy and has that special feel for making big plays when he's in the game. But as Thomas put it, just because you have that really high ceiling and potential doesn't mean you can do it right now. This brings up an important point about why Sanders fell to the fifth round in the first place. Thomas believes it's because NFL teams saw a player who still needs significant development before he can be a starting quarterback at this level. That's not an insult, that's just honest evaluation. Now let's talk about what actually happened during the preseason, because Sanders' performance tells the real story here. Sanders started strong in his first preseason game, throwing 2 touchdown passes and looking comfortable. Fans were excited, social media was buzzing, and it seemed like maybe the hype was justified. Then came the final preseason game against the Los Angeles Rams, and everything fell apart. Sanders played almost a full half and completed just 3 of 6 passes for 14 yards. But here's the really concerning part. He got sacked 5 times for a loss of 41 yards and had a fumble. For a quarterback who's supposed to be known for getting the ball out quickly, taking 5 sacks in limited playing time is a major red flag.
Sanders being pressured, spins away again, keeping the play alive. The fans love it, but that's one of those plays where maybe he's got to roll out and throw it away, huh?
Yeah, I think he's getting a little bit too...
The deeper analysis shows why this happened, and it reveals a fundamental problem that Sanders needs to fix if he wants to succeed in Cleveland. Sanders has built his reputation on timing and accuracy, getting the ball out fast and making quick decisions. But during that Rams game, he kept trying to extend plays and drift around in the pocket instead of stepping up and making throws. 4 of those 5 sacks weren't really the offensive line's fault. They were on Sanders for holding the ball too long and not playing within the system.